Please.
Taoiseach, the death toll in Gaza has reached more than 30,000 people. Gaza is one of the most densely populated areas in the world, and under Israeli bombardment, its people have now been brutally displaced, forced into ever more cramped and overcrowded spaces, most recently into Rafah, and yet they're still being bombarded, even now in Rafah. Taoiseach, we're witnessing Armageddon. There is nowhere left for a desperate civilian population to go in Gaza. So on 7th October, we saw the horrific Hamas attack on Israel. And since 7th October, we have seen the loss of civilian life in Gaza on an unthinkable and unconscionable scale. In recent days, we've heard the heartbreaking audio of the last hours of 6-year-old Hind Rajab pleading for help, hours before she and her 2 rescuers were killed by Israeli fire, along with 5 members of her family. Taoiseach, back in October, the Dáil voted for a ceasefire, and in doing so, we were one of the first parliaments in the world to make that call. But while making calls is important, it's taking action that counts, Taoiseach. And as long as Ireland delays taking further meaningful steps to put an end to the genocide in Gaza, then our complicity in what is happening there is being prolonged. And there is so much more that your government can and should be doing. And you would have support from opposition in doing so. For The Independent today, Ellen Coyne writes that the Irish Strategic Investment Fund has invested more than €4 million in companies based in illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank, East Jerusalem and the Golan Heights. And these illegal settlements, Taoiseach, represent the thin end of the wedge of the same policies of the Israeli government. Policies which have resulted in the slaughter of so many children in Gaza, children like Hind Rajab. And these Israeli government policies are breaching humanitarian law. They're displacing people from their homes, destroying families, destroying communities. And by enabling subsidising of businesses in occupied territories, Ireland is complicit. And that complicity, we know, does not chime with the values of people here in Ireland. So, Taoiseach, while I acknowledge your engagement on measures such as recognition of Palestinian statehood, it's not good enough to say wait a little longer, because how long must people in Gaza wait? The death toll is mounting, starvation is setting in, disease is spreading there. And so we in Ireland must move and must take further action. We must move on legislation to stop Ireland subsidising genocide, and we must move to end trade with occupied territories in Palestine. Your government has said you would prefer to take action on these issues by non-legislative means, but there are perfectly good bills waiting to be passed. And Taoiseach, I've received a legal opinion which indicates that the Occupied Territories Bill initiated by Senator Francis Black is possible to pass under EU law. So let's do it. Let's move to pass the Occupied Territories Bill. Will you commit to doing so? And at the next EU Council meeting, will you press for the suspension of the EU-Israel Trade Association Agreement? Taoiseach, we need to do more than call for a ceasefire. There is a solid view in this House on both sides that we need to take action now. We're hearing from so many people across the country their utter distress and horror at the genocide unfolding before our eyes. We cannot sit back and be complicit.
Thank you, Deputy